Good morning, everyone. Trust everyone's having a good week. We about got this one whipped. Just another day to go till the weekend, but do trust everyone's had a good week up to this point in time, and pray that you have a great Thursday today. Um, but we do want to continue on talking. And the other guys have done a wonderful job this week. I appreciate um, each one who stands, those who fill in, and those who are a little more regular. It's a good thing. I'm was talking about it at school, and it is nice to on the way to school uh, put on the devotion and hear what our brothers have to share. Uh, and as I said before, it's a good refresher. Um, Not that I think anyone who was at church on Sunday is going to forget that one anytime soon, but it is good to be reminded throughout the week and continue to chew on God's word and what He brings. But Sunday was a wonderful, wonderful service. Um, God showed up, and His Spirit had liberty, and appreciate Brother TJ for being obedient and allowing God to um, move and allow God to move him from the series we've been doing, which has been great. Um, but he went with the life of victory and then talked several points in there, hope, and all this stemmed from one of his last conversations had with Brother Lee, just a pillar of our church, wonderful, wonderful man who I love dearly, and uh, went home to be with the Lord. So let's make sure we continue to remember Sister Sheila. But I've entitled today's devotion Life of Victory and want to talk on hope. One of the scriptures that Brother TJ was using was Romans 8 and 18. And of course, we're talking about the Apostle Paul here, um, who this also goes along with Wednesday night's lesson out of Philippians, and then we're talking about Paul's letter there to them. But if we know anything about Paul, we know that he was a servant of the Lord. He went from being a terrorist to um, a very devout um, Christian, and one of the greats, definitely of the New Testament there. And wrote much of it. Much of the New Testament came from uh, Paul. But in Romans, he says, "For I consider that the suffering of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us." And as we said, talking on victory Sunday, um, and suffering isn't anything that we want to go through, but suffering is one of those things that we all are going to go through. We will suffer sometimes for our own, um, you know, sins, our own decisions. Sometimes we suffer for the decisions of others, and sometimes we suffer just because of the evil that's in this world. Um, and Paul writing this, you can go back and look over his life of being shipwrecked, and as we mentioned before about Philippians, he's writing that from a jail cell. Um, and so what he's talking about is, we look at the beginning and the end of our journey, and or the continuation of our journey, and we're going to hit hills. That's going to be hard to climb. We're going to be have some mountaintop experiences, but we're also going to have some valleys, and sometimes those valleys are tough and they're dark and they're hard. And we live in a world today that when sometimes people and their opinions will put you in a valley or try to put you in a valley. Um, yeah, and it can be tough. It can be very tough. But Paul's saying here that, and this is from a guy who's been beaten, shipwrecked, um, left for dead, and eventually will die for the stands in which he takes. But he's saying that none of that stuff will compare to the glory that's going to be revealed in us. And we know that when our time on this earth is over, we're going to get a new body. And we mentioned Brother Lee. Brother Lee's is going to have his new body. Um, And I got down here at the bottom, popcorn, and, I'm a fan of popcorn. I like it. Don't necessarily like the husk when it gets in my teeth, but love me some popcorn. But popcorn is a unique um, kernel, seed. Not sure exactly what qualification that starts in when it gets down to this here, but we know that's a kernel. And once that is heated, I think it's 400 degrees, then it is going to explode. And what makes that unique is most other types of seeds and kernels like that, when it gets in extreme heat, it will shrivel up. You take a seed and throw it on top of the ground, it's not going to grow. Uh, it's going to just stay there, and it's going to wither, and it's going to shrink up, and it's going to be no good for anything. But once you plant it in the ground, then it gets the nutrients that it needs, and it can grow to be what it's supposed to do. But when you look at the popcorn kernel and the fact that it has to go under extreme heat and extreme pressure, and when it's under that, after it's completed that process, then it becomes this, what we know as popcorn. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I would not want to open up a bag or pour out a bowl full of kernels and start trying to eat it. Because one, you're going to break your teeth out. And two, it's not very tasty. Why? That's not the finished product. And it's the same thing for us in our life. So many times when we're going through the tough times, remember that we'll go and we'll be in some pressure situations where the heat's going to get turned up from time to time. But when it's all said and done, we're going to become what God's called us to be. We're going to be, in its completion of what we were designed to be. So as you go through things, when you go through things, remember that, when we're seeking the Lord's presence, when we're seeking his guidance in those things, um, you know, that it can change our attitude to where, we're reminded of the fact that if we're in a storm, God's there with us. He doesn't leave us. He's not shouting instructions from the sidelines. He's right out there with you. So no matter what it is that you're going through, remember this, just like this kernel, when the heat gets turned up, when the pressure is on, God can take that and use it for his glory and us to become something that's very usable for him and his kingdom. So pray that you got something out of that. Again, just very thankful for the service that we had on Sunday, expecting God to continue to move, continue to do great things as we remain obedient and allow his spirit to move. Pray that you have a great day. We love you guys. We'll see you soon.